Okay. Well, welcome to What If They Don't Want to Collaborate, Session 2, Reframing the Future When They Can't See It, which feels like a very common thread these days. So I hope that whatever you take away from this today, serves you in a positive way that helps reflect your strength, show the greatness that's inside you, and then also assist with your collaboration skills in the difficult moments as we're getting through. I'm honored to have my dear friend and the brilliant and incredible Rebecca Ryan here with us today. So we'll bring her officially
Woo!
in just a second. But yes, there can be cheering. There can be. This is informal, everyone. So if you speak up, don't be bashful. It's all here, but just know that you are recorded, and this will be on YouTube and it will be shared amongst places. So because I believe that this is a very, very important conversation to be having at this moment. Um, Okay, check in because we cannot do this with me if there's not a proper check in. For this session, I want to check in with how do you assist co collaborators to see the vision of the collaboration? So, what are some of your tools? You can put it in the chat. You can share your name, where you're coming from, if you'd like as well. Or you can unmute and say it verbally. But yeah, how do you assist co collaborators to see the vision of the collaboration? Often I rely on superpowers, and that is one of the best ways that we can rely on our superpowers, trust our superpowers, and know that they're going to help bring the vision to life through other people. Talking about it, I love that. Use 8 Qs. Oh, I love the 8 Qs. But when I think of my superpower, I think of mirroring the brilliance in other people, and that shows them why they are needed in this collaboration. And even if they don't get the vision right away, they can at least start seeing where they're needed. Lauren, be curious about shared greater impact. Thank you. Yes, the curiosity is one of our best assets. Anyone else? Okay, well, if something comes up, feel free to throw it in there. Um, I want to go over a little bit about what happened in last session. We won't, if any of this intrigues you, please go to YouTube. And when at the end of all three sessions, I'll send an email with the links for all of them. But last time we talked a little bit about what collaboration is, what does it require, and how does it get designed. So this is all kind of part of this. We worked off the basic definition that a collaboration is when two or more actors work together to accomplish a common goal. And we really went into like the trust that needs to be created. And with the trust and creating the trust, we look at the 5 building blocks of collaborative intelligence, which are transformational leadership, conflict resolution, facilitation, awareness of self, and friendliness to collaborate. So we kind of went in that, and then remembering that collaborations require an invitation. When we brought Deborah Biddle into the conversation, we really got more into the bringing people together. Like, this is the goal of collaboration. We've got two goals: the objective of what we want to get done, and then the fact that we're in community together and we're in a place where everyone feels whole and seen. Um, and then she really got into a beautiful point about patience for when people can join, for when people waiting for when they can join the collaboration, not expecting them to just jump in right away, waiting for when they feel comfortable, when they have enough data, when they are up for the task of joining, and then honoring the humanity while working through the difference of each other and knowing that sometimes you're just not going to collaborate with people. And the big jumping off point from all of this is what happens when they don't want to collaborate. And simple, you don't have to. However, we must leave the invitation open because walls will be created. And then if a wall's created, we're never going to get past that. And that indifference is going to last a much longer time, regardless of what the collaboration is or what the intention is or what the hope and the future looks like. So that's just one way to look at it. But however we look at what do we do if they don't want to collaborate, I urge us to remember the invitation in any way, even if it's not formal, if it's like, well, if they come back to me, I'll work with them, or if they can do this, I'll work with them, that's still somewhat of an invitation. But we'll get into more of that today with Rebecca. Before I bring Rebecca in, I want to set the scene now for this session. I want to look at and invite you to think of collaboration as a sacred act. uh, what does it mean to be sacred? And you can feel free to put that in your thoughts in the chat. But for me, sacred is something to live up to, something that I feel is necessary for other things. It's a building block. It is something that I pay homage to, that I respect, that I take the time to care for, that I put intention into, and so collaboration as a sacred act is something that is in us. For me, how collaboration is sacred is the fact that, okay, we're going to get into a little sex ed. There's an egg and there's a sperm, and these two join together, and it's a collaboration. And then through mitosis and meiosis and all the other osises, we get these humans. So our body and everything living is a collaboration. Like my heart's got to work with my lungs to get, it is so. And so if that wasn't, those tissues and those organs weren't collaborating, we wouldn't get this. So, and I know that might be far-fetched, and you don't have to hold on to this concept. Just observe it and see where it sits inside you. But for me, collaboration is that sacred. And so when we look at how we are going to transform the world into whatever's next, and how we're going to transform our systems and our organizations and just our habits and how we work in our family units and everything, I believe that considering collaboration as sacred is very important. Um, any thoughts, anything you want to put in the chat? Is this bringing up anything that really just, yeah. I'm not religious. So sacred, I don't want to mix sacred in with religion. But if that's where you go with it, then I honor that and I support that. Love the connection with our bodies and how they work as one. It is, I mean, it is beautiful. It is so honorable, and it helps deliver the humanity to those who don't necessarily see it. With further setting the scene, when stepping out just a little bit more, after we consider the collaboration being sacred and inside ourselves, then it really allows us to open up to the building block of collaborative intelligence, of awareness of self, or self-awareness, and the power that we get when we know what we're really good at, when we know what we're really bad at, when we know the moments when we need to eat, when we need to sleep, when we are so in tune with our body that's constantly collaborating, it makes us better collaborators. And when we do that, the work becomes better and the vision becomes more clear, and it is contagious with other collaborators in it. What if everyone knew that they were sacred? That ends up with the question with me, with self-awareness and in collaboration. If everyone showed up in every collaboration knowing that they were sacred because they are collaboration, and that is sacred, how much more strong would our collaborations be? Something to think about. So I hope that little bit sits well with you as you are thinking about how you show up, your brilliance, your superpowers, why you are valuable in all of the collaborations that you're participating in. Um, and so that's the piece that I want to leave you with today from just my point of view. But we're not really here for me, only we're here for the amazing, brilliant, fantastical Rebecca Ryan. Here's a few things about Rebecca. She's known as the human spark plug for her infectious enthusiasm for the future. She only one of only 400 worldwide to hold the APF, the Associated Professional Futurist designation. She's the founder of Next Generation Consulting. which has impacted 1 in 15 Americans. Like, wow. She's written 3 books. You'll get all this in an email. She's been a TEDx speaker. Um, and the TEDx Beacon Street. She's frequently on ABC, CBS, Fox, NPR, News Nations, and tons of podcasts. And she's just won so many recognitions and awards. So join us, please, Rebecca Ryan. Is there anything that you want to add to that? That like,
No,
because
actually, I want
because
you to delete that screen. That's just completely embarrassing.
what? Okay, we're talking about self-awareness. So this is what you have
I was raised
produced.
by German Lutherans in the upper Midwest. We don't talk about ourselves that way.
This is what you have produced in this opportunity, in this meat sack, in these 40 plus years. So that's what you bring, and it's not like your ego is so large that it can't fit in places. So like, you are very humble and wonderful, and also you've done all this shit. So great job.
Thanks, Greg.
And I changed the screen, so we'll start with starter questions. Rebecca, how do you define collaboration?
I love the simplicity of your explanation. Also exclamation, two or more people working together on a common goal. It's the simplest way. Now, in our work at Next Generation Consulting, often we have dozens of collaborators as we're trying to build long range visions. So, in that case, I guess I would say that collaboration is a collaboration is more of a verb than a noun, and it requires curiosity and exploration and a not knowing heart. Because curiosity, and I guess that's 3 ways of saying the same thing: curiosity, exploration, and a not knowing heart. But for the people we work with who are often like leaders in their communities who are trying to imagine an even brighter future, they get paid for knowing things. And so the idea of being a true collaborator and entering with a heart of not knowing is it can be difficult and uncomfortable, I should say. It can be very uncomfortable. And so there's something about a really good collaboration. Everyone feels a little uncomfortable. Even like I have butterflies in my tummy kind of going right now, right? Because that is kind of how it feels like we never know how it's going to go until it starts going. So that's how I would define a collaboration is a group of people entering not knowingness. And in our case, it's usually for the purpose of leaving something better for people you may never meet.
I love that so much. First of all, I love that you recognize that our definition at the Institute is very simple, because that exact reason, so that other organizations can adopt it and make it work for what they're doing. Because so many organizations we get into and they say collaboration's our value, and then I say, well, how do you define it? And then they have no clue.
Right,
So, but the
right,
other piece of this, of the not knowing, is I how I heard that is I can know what skill set and what task I'm doing in this collaboration, but I still might not know what the end result's going to be. We have an idea of what we hope it's going to be, but the
right.
collaboration is, yeah. So I don't know if that goes along with the not knowing in your mind, but that's how I kind of heard it.
Yeah, I like the addition of like kind of knowing what you bring to the table. But I think, the not knowing is also like don't be too attached to that either. I just came out of a team meeting. One of my teammates is on this call. I just came out of a team meeting where we were talking about a big collaboration we did in, I don't feel like I can release the name of the client, but we did a huge collaboration in a large, major southeastern city that many people love. And one of the problems that they were talking about was traffic. Because it's a port city, these bridges are super important. And if like one lane on a bridge closes, everyone is in gridlock because of how this place is constructed. So everyone's like, "Oh, we need more traffic. We need more transit options." And one of the collaboration groups said, we need to start thinking about the water as an asset because we said, you guys are a port town, just like San Francisco is a port town and New York is a port town. And those communities use the water as as a place for transportation. It's not just something to look at or recreate on, it's part of their transit network. And people in the community were just like, their eyes like jammed thinking about this. Because they're not open, because they have a fixed way of thinking about what transit is and what it isn't. And yet, the more they worked on this together, the more people sort of opened up to this idea like, wow, I mean, yes, this actually could be a solution. So I guess knowing is important, but also being willing to set down what you think you know.
I echo that and surely that so strongly, so bigly. I don't have a word for the adjective, but I love it. Okay, so moving on to this piece of why the series has been brought to is what do you initially do if a collaborator doesn't want to collaborate? And I leave that open because there's different reasons why someone doesn't want to collaborate. There's because they don't have capacity or that they don't believe in the mission. And so, but in all that, we have a responsibility to still hold space for however it is. So what about you?
You and your compatriots may not like this answer, but my first answer is don't invite them to collaborate. I mean, you can't um, you shouldn't expect people to want to do what you want to do. So if somebody says, I don't want to collaborate, don't let them in the room. Priya Parker with The Art of Gathering, she talks a lot about who you let in the room really matters. And we always hit on this with our clients as well. The people who we invite to that first event, to that first sort of kickoff, that first voyage, that pushing off from shore into something new. You need to have people in the boat with you who are generative and not selfish, who are going to try to help the group, not just help themselves. People who have that curiosity and that open-mindedness, people who aren't going to like stick with just their pet issue. And so I think it's really important to be honest with ourselves that there are some people who maybe shouldn't be in the room to collaborate. And sometimes those are people like mayors or representatives or city council members or heads of organizations who are just single issue people and who are going to suck the air out of the room rather than put oxygen into the room. So, I mean, my first answer is don't, say like, I can see this isn't for you. Like, we'd love to have you here if you can be generative and selfless and these things. But if you can't, that's okay too. So maybe now's not the right time for you. So number one, I wouldn't even invite them if I knew that they truly did not want to collaborate. But the second thing is, I think I would just kind of pull them to the side and say, like, you think about like the electric company. I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember this, but there was always this thing called Which of These Kids is Not Like the Other One? And it was a 9 box. And like 8 of the kids would be like jumping rope, and one kid would be bouncing a basketball. And it was like, the exercise for the viewer was which of these kids is not like the other one. And so there's always an opportunity to pull somebody to the side and just say, like, hey, it feels like you're not really with us on this. Like, are you okay? How's it going? Is something going on? And I bet you 9 times out of 10, it's something that has nothing to do with what's happening in the room. It's like my kid just broke their leg or, whatever it is. And that you can deal with. So number one, don't invite. Number two, pull aside and ask, hey, what's up? And if you're not the right person to ask, hey, what's up? Maybe there is a right person to ask, hey, what's up? But the third thing would be like if something is really wrong with how the collaboration is going, just kind of try to get clear on it and get some clarification because maybe they needed to hear something that hasn't been said yet. Like, well, I thought there was going to be a little bit more of a focus on X, and I haven't even heard that yet. So my ears are a little pinned back about this. Okay, like very valid, very valid. So those are the three things I would do that I can think of. What would you do, Greg?
I love it. No, well, this is not about what I would do. This is about what I'm.
But you're the expert.
Yes, I don't. Yeah, if you don't know me, that word. I'm a student of collaboration. I'm not an expert, although I tend to know more than many people in a room. Here's what I have to say that I love about what you shared. One, the importance of discernment, of like knowing before you even make the invitations to a collaboration, who has capacity, who is really in this. I love the idea of like who's got one topic that's going to pull all the air out of the room, like knowing that, discerning what you're going. And then if you make the ask to someone and they can't, then then this came out of what I was thinking as you were talking, was that what mirror is that holding up? Like what is, it's usually about them, like you said, it's not about you if they say no, but also there's a mirror there, like, okay, there's something else to this puzzle piece that we're missing. So what are we missing before we make another ask? And then just be conscious of what you're doing and know that not everyone can always do it. Not
Yeah,
everyone can be
exactly.
involved to the party. Like people are busy.
Greg, are you open to a friendly pushback on something that you
Of
said?
course.
So the idea of capacity, I work with some of the busiest people. I mean, I feel like I go at a relatively brisk pace, but these people go 5x what I do. And I don't think capacity should be a limiting factor because if someone is really interested or has a stake in something, or feels like they need to be there, they will develop, they will develop the capacity to be there, the time on their schedule, et cetera. So I would put capacity much lower on the list of collaboration criteria um, than it sounds like you have been, but maybe I've been misinterpreting.
It was more of a an example for discernment to things that we're going
Mm,
to like possibilities. But your point is so valid. And yes, we know, I think everyone in this room knows really high, people that with that are going at 5x speed all the time, and they're able to accomplish so much. And that is their drive and their energy and their motor inside them. So yeah, I don't mean it as a inhibitor. I mean it just as a thought, as when we're
mm,
discerning. So thank you for that.
you
Um,
bet.
we're now as going into your expertise in this. Please share a little bit about your work, and then how does this work hold space for those who don't quite know if, when, or how they want to be involved in a collaboration.
Yeah. So our team helps our clients think really long term, usually 20 years or more, about the kind of future they want to create for their successors. We work primarily with like the public sector and the quasi-public sector in terms of like we might help chambers of commerce with like their workforce and economic development plans. We might help cities or regions with their long range plans, like what kind of housing should we build for people who are going to be moving here 15 and 20 years from now? How much parking will we need? So, we help them think about the kind of community they want to create for the future and who their future residents will be. Or that we also work with public power districts. So as they're rethinking the future of energy and what it's going to take to sort of like electrify all the things that we do, what kind of investments should we be making? What do we need to know about who our future residents will be? So we're usually thinking the farthest we've ever thought out is 50 years. And the sweet spot for us is 20 years, but we can also do 10-year futures for clients. So that's what we do. So 10, 20, 50-year futures for clients. And the second part of this question, how does this work hold space for those who don't know quite if, when, or how they want to be involved in a collaboration? Um, I don't know that we do this very well because every single person like who comes to our first workshop is like they're all looking around like I don't know what the hell we're about to do here. Like because most of them have never done it. And so one of the things we'll often say is how many of you have taken a history class? Every hand up in the air. How many of you have taken a futures class? No hands up in the air. Most people haven't learned how to think futuristically. And there's no real magic to it. I mean, anybody can learn how to do it. It's just that people don't have experience normally with how to think, plan, um, do strategic foresight work. So for us, the way that we hold the space is we start by admitting this is new for almost everybody in this room. And we have a trusted process that we've been using for 27 years, using, developing, refining for 27 years. Our work has affected now 1 in 5 Americans. And we wouldn't be in business for this long if this stuff didn't work. So we are asking them to trust the process, and we lay out what the process is and what's going to be asked of them. And then we just usually, as soon as possible, within 10 minutes, we start getting them engaged in some of the more future-oriented discussions so they get to try it right away. And it's physical. There are decks that they have to pass out. There's like conversations that they have to have. And I would say that that idea, it's Michael Wilkerson has written that great book, like The Secrets of Great Facilitation or whatever it's called. And he talks about you in the first 10 minutes, you have to inform, inspire, engage, and empower. And we try to do all those four things in the first 10 minutes, but get them moving in their bodies because, I mean, this is physically true. You can't move like towards the future until you move, right? So moving is part of what we have people doing. So um, that's usually enough to kind of get it cooking and sort of get the process going. And then the other, I don't want to say it's like a trick because I don't mean it's like we're trying to trick anybody, but what we've learned over the years is if you can do very familiar things, like everyone knows how to play cards, everybody knows how to deal cards, everybody knows how to play cards. We give them a game that feels very familiar, but the topic is the future. So, if you can always match something that's pretty well known and familiar with something that might be a little bit less well known, people will usually, buy in. And then it's, of course, the responsibility of the facilitator to make sure that there aren't ball hogs and nobody's taken up all the time and, people feel well cared for in terms of caffeine and breaks and stuff like that, just kind of taking care of people's
Right.
sense of security and safety. But that's what we do.
Oh, in this work, bringing in the attachment to expectations and just limiting beliefs that come up in these sessions that you're in, where is the balance between them still having buy-in, but still like having someone on their shoulder, like, but do you really believe this? Like,
Totally. It always happens. We get to this point. So there are 4 phases in our process, and I'll briefly describe them. In the first phase, it's called the sensing phase, and it's when we do sort of a horizon scan of all of the trends that are like out there that are going to impact their domain. So it might be like the Orlando region, right? Like what are all the trends that are going to be impacting the Orlando region by 2045? And we have a game, and people are really into that game. Like they really love that game. The next step in the process is the imagining phase. And this is where they have to imagine different futures for like Orlando through 2045. They get real uncomfortable there because most people have had their creativity absolutely beaten out of them. And when you say like, hey, we're going to do a storyboard about a character that the future is going to happen to, and you've got to tell the story about some of the trends that we talked about and how it's going to affect their lives. We give them as many prompts to kind of make them feel comfortable and contained in a space, but that gets them real uncomfortable. And that's when they start to question the process and where is all this going? And we know that that's always happening, so we're ready for it. We're like, this workshop is going to make you real uncomfortable. Like if you're a person who loves numbers and spreadsheets, you are going to be way out of your comfort zone on this. But just lean into this, and you've got a coach who's going to help you get this into shape. Then when they come to the third workshop, boom, it like all starts to snap together. And what we hear them say is, you almost lost me at the last workshop, but you told me to hang in there. And now I see how this all works together. So it's expected that there will be a part where people are going to break down. We just prop them up as best we can. And then by the time they get to that third workshop, they're like, oh, now I see.
I asked that specifically because that is such an intersection section of where people will exit and not want to collaborate. Like when they, in our work with the life cycle collaboration, the collaborative framework, we have it that happen in the idea farm where it is a moment to use all of the creativity. There are no boundaries, there are no ceilings, there's like anything. If you want to bring in 16 elephants from India and you're gonna like, we're gonna pretend that we can do it, but that block that everyone has, that because like you said, they've had the creativity beaten out of them. So It's
Have
yeah.
you just like I started using a couple of different techniques just last week because this is the part of our process that I'm just fiddling with to try to get it so that as many people as possible can feel comfortable. Have you done any techniques that like we could use that help people in that idea farm part of your process?
Oh yeah, definitely bringing in childlike tools, crayons,
Okay.
like basic coloring pages,
Okay.
Play-Doh, building blocks, like bringing those in there because that sense memory, like the Lincoln, I brought in Lincoln Logs one time, and the sense memory of these adults, like I think the youngest one was like 38, and them playing with Lincoln Logs and almost getting this childlike energy, then and then we're also the reminder, which you do in your sessions, the reminder of this is meant to be a menu of options for when we get stuck in the future. So anything
Mm-mm-mm.
is possible. And if we can't get the 16 elephants from India, what is a way that we can still create that impact or still create that feeling? And so I hope
Oh,
that
thank you, Greg. That's great. That is great.
you are welcome. We're going to go into this last question, and then I'm going to open it up for anyone here in the room that would like to ask questions. So, what signs or actions happen when we kind of talked about this actually, but what signs or actions happen when we can see someone doesn't want to collaborate, but they aren't being honest with themselves? And then
Mm,
also, like, how do we show up for them? Or do we just show up to hold space for them? And if they want to exit, they can exit. There's no one holding them in.
yeah. I think the part of this question, because Greg did let me see these questions before Monday, before today. I think the part of this question that held me up is, but they aren't being honest with themselves. Because I think most of us can recognize from people's nonverbals, like when they're getting disengaged or they're not being a good collaborator. I mean, those things for anybody who has facilitated for any amount of time and done a reasonably good job, you can see when people are starting to check out, right? They're looking at their phone, they're crossing their arms, they're standing in the hallway for a long time doing something on their phone usually. Um, so I mean, in those cases, just a like, are you coming back in? Is everything okay? Is usually enough to kind of get them re-engaged. Like when they know that somebody notices that they're not collaborating, that's usually enough sort of like gentle peer pressure to kind of get them to re-engage. But the idea of them not being honest with themselves, that's where I really was stuck.
I'll say a little bit more about
Yeah,
where
yeah,
the
please.
germination of this question. It's stemming from the building block of collaborative intelligence of conflict resolution.
Okay.
And what conflict resolution skills, not we and they don't have to be major skills, but what do we need to anticipate the conflict that this could be created?
Mm,
And is it and it's from what you just said, it can be that simple of like, hey, are you okay? Like I'm
yeah.
noticing this and this, but also the other co-collaborators are probably feeling it too.
Yeah. One of the things that I do when if I'm not going to be spending a lot of time with a group, um, like this just happened recently where I was coming in cold. I was only going to be with a group for 2 days. I was coming in cold. I didn't know any of them, and none of them knew anything about this foresight process. I just did 30-minute one-on-one interviews with each of them to sort of just get a sense of like when they think about the future, what do they think about, right? Like how far out do they think? Where do they think they and their team's strengths are with in relationship to the future? Are they I didn't ask this question explicitly, but my questions were designed to get my sense of like, are they holding on more to the past or are they holding on more to the future? Could they easily be switched from holding on to the past to holding on to the future? And I have to say even those brief one-on-one interviews are really helpful to kind of understand who the problem children might be in the facilitated dialogue. So that's what I would say, if you're coming in cold with a group is just to spend a little bit of time talking with them about how they're approaching this, like how are they coming into it. But if you're in a situation like I think some of our participants today are, where they know the people they're going to have to collaborate with, they've maybe collaborated with them time and time again, it still is valuable to just kind of do a check, even if it's in your own mind, with some of those same questions. Like, is this person more attached to what was or what's coming? Whatever your collaboration is about, right? To just think through, these people well. So where are their sensitivity issues going to be? If you're expecting trouble or difficulty or lack of collaboration, is there anything you can do before it starts? I've had to do this with client communities where a mayor really needed to be in the room, but this mayor was a real dick, right? And they were like, listen, this guy can run stuff off the track so fast. Nobody wants to say anything controversial in front of the mayor. And I said, let me call the mayor. And so I called the mayor and I said, listen, we're going to be talking about something you have a lot of subject matter expertise in. And there are a couple of ways you could play this, but here's how I'd prefer you play it. I'd prefer that you be the one to talk last at your group because everyone's going to defer to you if you talk first. If you really want to, we'll brief you about the meeting afterwards. If you'd prefer not to be in the room, save yourself 8 hours. We'll brief you up on what happened in the room if you don't want to be in the room. But if you're going to be in the room, these are the things I really need from you. Do I have your agreement on that? Okay. Do I further have your agreement that if I see you doing these behaviors that are going to be difficult for the group, I can call you on them? Yes. Would you like me to do that one-on-one or in front of everybody? You know, so there's a no, like you got your eye on the person who's going to be the poopy collaborator. You just that time up front is going to just save you so much time down the line.
First, I'm thinking of a new game called Poopy Collaborator, the card game. Second, the two underlying things in both this is the importance of relationship building, whether you're with them constantly or just a little bit like those 30-minute one-on-ones, how brilliant, but also that's valuable for if you're constantly with them, the relationship building piece. And then the necessity of boundaries and guidelines and agreements
Mm,
and expectations in with all the collaborators and specifically the poopy collaborators. uh
yes.
this is so valuable, Rebecca. I really hope you feel these two pieces of conflict resolution can save worlds. We talked about conflict resolution skills as this high and mighty, like hard thing to learn and like this routine. And yes, there's all these philosophies and methods to conflict resolution, but really it comes down to what you said: relationship building and guidelines and boundaries. So,
Mm,
and
yep.
agreements. Before we open it up, before I stop recording and open it up to other people. Do you have what else is sitting on your head before we end it and then invite people to ask questions?
Well, people are probably sick of hearing me say this, but everyone thinks they know how to collaborate because they have to do it all the time. It's kind of like people who go to school think they're experts in education and what teachers and school boards should do because they went to school. And it's not true. And, doing Gregg's class, which I've done and many of you have done, you realize that collaboration isn't just like, it's not nothing and it takes work. And with a few skills, like you can do it so much better. So I think if you've gotten anything out of this, it's because there are tools, there are techniques that can help build more safe, collaborative spaces where people really can, achieve something in a group that they couldn't have individually, but even help the group achieve something that it wouldn't have been able to do, without some of these guidelines and methodologies. So I just want to say, like, we can always get better at collaboration.
I echo it. Yes, thank you so much. And next week we'll have Judy Carabo from Mission Plus Strategy. She's the Chief Collaboration Officer, and she will get more into that exact thing. So thank you. I'm going to hit stop record. And then anyone else, if you have any